Good, thank you.
Hearing.
All right, so my name is Barry Langer. Before I get started on this, I wanted to establish a little bit of my credibility. I am a fifth-year electrical engineer. I am the president of the Power and Energy Society on campus. And last year, I was in charge of solar panel manufacturing and design for our solar boat here on campus. I'm pretty passionate about alternative energies, and that's why I'm here today. So my main claim is that nuclear energy is preferable to all alternative energies. I'm going to do that by explaining, one, the upsides of nuclear energy as it can supply our increasing energy needs. Two, the downsides of other renewable energies, including solar and wind. And three, the recent developments of nuclear technologies that will make nuclear more lucrative in the future. So let's go back to the first premise. The first premise is that there are many upsides to nuclear energy as it can supply our increasing energy needs. So that can be done by widespread use, high gains, and effective generation. So there are over 60 nuclear power plants in the United States through 31 states. They generate 20% of all the U.S. electricity consumption. You can find that online through the Department of Energy. So that's just on the ground. Now, we have nuclear submarines, we have nuclear aircraft carriers. There's 7 nuclear aircraft carriers currently online, and there are 22 nuclear submarines. So overall, there's a lot of nuclear energy just between the United States. These ships don't have to refuel or overhaul for up to 25 years, so they don't have to come and take out the nuclear rods or do any of that. It's just, it works, and they have to just keep, maintenance going. If anyone has driven down to San Diego, I'm going to use an example very close to home. You've seen on the 5, there's San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station, this big, ugly thing right on the coast. That can supply up to 2,200 megawatts of energy. Now that's a number that many people probably don't understand. So basically, that's 1.4 million homes that can supply. Unfortunately, it's been decommissioned due to an engineering error, not a nuclear error. So one of the other things that nuclear energy should be more important for as we go into the future is smart grid. Now, that's a buzzword that many people have heard. They don't really know what it is, but basically, it's work smarter, not harder. So when you have wind, you have solar, you have fracking through natural gas, and nuclear, all this combines to make our energy consumption more efficient, and then on the other side, all the demand that you have would be more efficient. So instead of plugging in your car during the day, you can plug it in at night. So by reducing this overall consumption, we can have nuclear become more and more apparent. So I touched on electric cars. What I'd like to talk about is the overnight charging. Electric cars are roughly 1.5 homes in electricity demand. That's why they're plugged in at night. If you know anyone with a Leaf or a Prius, that's why they're charging them at night, because the bill for electricity is lower at night. But that still means that generation is needed, right? You need to have a constant source of generation. So that's where nuclear comes in rather than coal or rather than wind or solar. So my second premise is that other renewable energies are not economically ready to serve the American public. First, and this is kind of apparent, solar and wind are not on demand. Now, what I mean by that is you can't go to the sun and say, hey, I need a lot of energy right now. You can't go in for the wind and say, hey, I need a lot of wind power right now. Nuclear, on the other hand, you can do that. It's very simple. You just have a boot up process, and then within 10 minutes, you're generating a peak. There's also environmental problems for solar and wind, which is kind of ironic since they're renewables. For example, solar uses a lot of space. When I was working in solar boat, we had an issue where the boat was 20 feet in length, but we only could fit so many solar panels. When you go across to, say, Germany or to New York or something, if they have solar panels, they're going to be on roofs. They can't be on the ground, and that takes away some of the benefits of solar. They're also only 22% efficient. This is from the Department of Energy. There's a graph where you can see what the average is, and 22% is average and most cost effective. However, the most is 40%. but that's very expensive. And wind turbines are not as environmentally safe as most people think. You can look at studies done by the Department of Energy and other utilities, and there's hundreds of thousands of birds and bats that are killed each year by the motion of the wind turbines. My third premise is that recent developments in nuclear technology will make nuclear more lucrative in the future. So this will eliminate events like 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima, which are the 3 major accidents in nuclear. So even though we have those 3 main accidents, nuclear has served over 14,500 reactor years throughout 33 countries. This can be found on the Department of Energy as well. And lastly, most usage and increased development will lead to safer nuclear, including fusion. Right now, there are currently 4 generating stations being built within the United States, and time is up. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say that nuclear is preferable to wind and solar and other alternative energies, and I hope that this was informative enough.
There's a lot of things.
Now he's done with the outline now, I guess. So there we go. Had all that controversy about the outline and got to get straight. All right, very. Several things I think are really solid in the presentation. I think you clearly state your proposition at the beginning. You preview the contents pretty effectively. In the preview, the secondary points are not always stated as claims, but when you get to them in the body of the speech, they were stated as claims. I appreciated that. The signposting in the body of the speech was generally solid. There were a couple of times when it felt like we were going off on some slight tangents, and so they needed to be more clearly connected to the main points. We're talking about plugging in cars and night charges and all those sorts of things, and I think that needs to. I thought it was clearer, for instance, in the point about alternatives. How there are problems with alternatives, and you integrated those more effectively with that argument about the alternatives than you did with the the consistency of the grid and the efficiency that you get at night. So if you could have been just as clear as to how those points were connected, it would have been fine. It just needed a little bit more explanation, and probably maybe a little organization too, because like I said, it felt like you went off on some tangents. On the supporting information, we've got a couple of good statistical pieces of information. There's general sources on those. I appreciated that. There's some factual data. I don't expect that there's going to be too much dispute on some of the factual data, although I do think you need to give us a source citation, for instance, on the amount of time that the nuclear warships are capable of operating without being retooled. You treat that as a fact. I don't doubt that what you're saying is accurate, but if we were, if this is an argument, somebody would probably want to know how you know that's true. And at the moment, I have no idea how you know that's true. I'm just taking it on your say-so, and I think that you don't want to rely on that, even though you are very convincing when you're speaking. Like I said, the presentation was solid. There are a couple of places where some of the data could be enhanced. I think you needed a little bit more expert testimony and, like I said, source citations on the factual data, but the examples and a couple of statistics were cited pretty effectively. At the end of the speech, you hope that we're informed about this? No. You want us to be convinced. Remember, this is an argument. This is not an informative presentation. So you need to be certain of your point and express it in a way that tells the audience that they ought to be jumping on your side of the line with you. All right. Thank you.